Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Found. When we left off, we were at the end of chapter 20. Just a big fight inside the conference room of the library. Angela Dupre and two men who, first of all, apologized, one of them, to Angela Dupre. The second one seemed to be tackling. It looked like it was the custodian, the janitor from the FBI. And they did advise him to stop writing letters, whatever that means. And then Jonah came back to try to figure out if Angela was okay, and he watched her disappear. That's where we left off. The librarian said, letting go of his arm. I think you did see something, she muttered. You really were looking carefully for those men. And Jonah had been. Even when the kids from school had been laughing at him, he made sure he peered down every aisle, every nook of the little reading area, and the men were nowhere in sight. Well, Jonah said, trying very hard to keep his voice from shaking, nothing's wrong now, I guess. Can I just go? The librarian regarded him thoughtfully. Yeah, go on then, she said. Jonah could feel her eyes on him, and he went to go join Chip and Catherine. Walking out the door, he felt robotic, because his body was doing something so normal. One foot stepping in front of the other, hands held out to shove against the door, while his mind was zipping and zooming and alighting with one strange thought after the other. What happened? Catherine asked. Is Angela okay? Angela... Jonah struggled hard to focus his mind, to concentrate on one moment of a memory that his brain kept trying to transform into something normal and acceptable, something that would fit with everything else. He wouldn't let his brain do that. He wouldn't stop trusting his own eyes. I saw Angela, Jonah said. I don't know if she's okay or not. I think she went into some sort of time warp. Chapter 21. Oh, no, not you too, Chip complained. I'm sorry, Jonah said. He bent over, bracing his hands against his knees, trying to pull more air into his lungs, a delayed reaction to all that frantic pedaling and running. As soon as he could, he looked at Chip. I'm not sure that's what happened. I'm not sure of anything anymore, but I think that's what happened because it makes the most sense of what I saw. The most sense? Chip repeated in amazement. That's the best explanation you can come up with, a time warp? You didn't see what I saw, Jonah said. The edge of his vision was a little blurry now, but this was a normal feeling. Oxygen deprivation, his mind automatically labeled it. He felt the way he did after he played an entire soccer game as a midfielder, running up and down for a solid hour. He felt this way after the soccer game this morning. Oh, geez, he thought, I played the soccer game and then I rode my bike like a maniac. No wonder I feel so dead. No wonder I'm seeing things. Not seeing things, seeing someone vanish, or wait, maybe she wasn't even there in the first place. I don't know. His thoughts got so tangled up that his mind gave up trying to revise the memory of seeing Angela vanish. It just happened, period. Catherine, he gasped, what you said when you saw the janitor disappear? I shouldn't have made fun of you. I didn't know. You believe me now? Catherine asked. Why? Comprehension dawned on her face. Angela disappeared, didn't she? And you saw it. Jonah nodded. I'll show you. He started to stumble over something. It was his own bike that he had dropped in the middle of the sidewalk. He picked it up, and it was nice to have the handlebars to lean on as he led Chip and Catherine through the parking lot, over to the cluster of pine trees. He dropped his bike again by the curb. She was right here, he said, stepping into the pine needles. I saw her. Then she took one step forward. He took a step, and she was gone. Jonah rocked back on his heels, stepping forward again. He felt nothing different in either place. There was no temperature change, no wind howling furiously around a time portal. In both stops, before a step and after, he just felt a breeze. The sunshine warm on the back of his neck, the pine needles soft beneath his feet. I guess the time warp only wanted Angela and not you, Chip said mockingly, but there was an edge of fear in his voice. Or someone's protecting you, Catherine said. Jonah looked at his sister. She was in the middle of pulling her hair back, capturing it in a ponytail. Jonah was surprised to see how red her face was. She had a ring of sweat where her bike helmet had pressed against her head, and the sweat was trickling down her cheeks. He was amazed she was willing to be seen in public like that. Didn't you notice, she began in an oddly strangled voice, how when those men were fighting, the cute janitor guy yelled, Jonah, Chip, run? He didn't say my name. He didn't say Angela's. You think those guys were fighting over us? Chip asked. Well, why not you too? Well, because you're the babies from the plane, Catherine said, and I'm not. Jonah thought about this. The fight and the fleeing had happened so fast. All he had were jumbled images in his head, but the janitor, Tackler, had seemed to be trying to protect them. How did he know our names? He asked. Mine, I guess, from Mr. Reardon's office, but Chip's? He remembered something else. And he did recognize Angela. I don't know if you two heard it because we were out the window already, but he called her Angela Dupre, and then he said, it was a struggle to try to remember the words. He said something like, we have wronged you. No, he said, we have wronged you in time we owe you. In time? Chip whispered. Catherine sat down on the curb, her elbows propped on her knees, her face caught in her hands. That whole plane thing did kind of ruin Angela's whole life, she said. I mean, refusing to talk on the phone, having everybody think she's crazy. Chip sat down beside Catherine. What does the janitor guy have to do with the plane? He said. Who was the guy that he was fighting with? What did he want to do to us? Jonah stiffened. Beware, he quoted. They're coming back to get you. That's what the letter said. That's who they were warning us about. He looked around frantically. What if the man tried again? Sometime when no one was around to protect them. Catherine shook her head, her ponytail flipping back and forth. Really, she said disgustedly, if that cute janitor wanted to warn you, he should have provided a few more details, like names and dates and something you could go to the police with. The police would never believe this, Chip groaned. I don't even believe this. Jonah could feel the sweat rolling down his back, but it wasn't leftover sweat from the biking and the running. It was new sweat, a panicky sweat, proof that his body thought he should be terrified. Well, here's what we need to do, Catherine said, tossing her hair emphatically, the ponytail whipping out behind her. We need to call the other kids on the survivors list again and see if they had any experiences with some guy trying to catch them or some other guy trying to protect them. We need to gather some data. We need to see if any of them have seen someone vanish into thin air. And we need to warn them and let them know what we know. But we don't know anything, Chip said. We know about the plane, Catherine said. We know where Angela thinks the plane came from. We know what the janitor boy looks like. We know what your letter means. Tallied up that way, Catherine's plan almost sounded reasonable. She sounded as calm as Mom did. Dealing with a crisis, one at a time, when Jonah was little, he dropped a glass and it shattered on the kitchen floor, and Mom had been there immediately, telling him in a soothing voice, Yes, Jonah, I see there's glass all over the floor, and I see that you're barefoot, and that can be a little bit scary. But if you stand there like a statue, I can pick you up and you'll be fine, and then I'll sweep up the glass. Jonah had escaped without a single cut. If Catherine could master that same voice right now, he was willing to let her take control. All right, he said. Chip shrugged. Whatever. All three of them retrieved their bikes and began walking them back towards the bike path. Chip and Catherine had not played a soccer game or pedaled as frantically as Jonah had, but neither one of them seemed any more eager than he was to rush home. They rode slowly, each of them stopping at a point to say, well, if there really is such a thing as time travel, or if we really are from the future, or if that plane really was a time machine. None of them seemed capable of making a complete sentence, though, following any of those ifs to a logical conclusion. That's because there are no logical conclusions, Jonah told himself. He had read some time travel books. He had seen some time travel movies, and they always seemed wrong. Couldn't the people just keep going back in time again and again and again and changing it until it turned out the way they wanted it to? And there was some sort of paradox he remembered hearing about. Something about a grandmother. Oh, yeah, time travel had to be impossible because otherwise you could go back in time and kill your own grandmother or something like that. But if you killed your own grandmother, you wouldn't exist, so you couldn't go back in time, so your grandmother would be alive again, and then you would exist again, so you could go back in time again and kill your grandmother again, but then you would never be born again. Jonah's head hurt thinking about it all. They reached Chip's house and actually parked their bikes neatly in the driveway. Even though they'd ridden slowly, Jonah was still drenched with sweat. Hey, I'm really rank, he said. Unless you want me stinking up the whole basement, I better take a shower before we start calling people. Catherine sniffed. Ugh, me too. She didn't have Mom's authoritative voice anymore. She just sounded embarrassed. Okay, Chip said, but hurry back. He sounded like he didn't want to be left alone, and he was too ashamed to say so. Jonah and Catherine took their bikes to the garage. You can have the shower in Mom and Dad's bathroom, Catherine said, not quite looking at him. This was a gift on her part, probably a sign that she felt sorry for him, because Mom and Dad's bathroom was bigger and nicer than the one in his and Catherine's rooms. Usually she'd dash into the better bathroom ahead of him, slamming the door shut, yelling, Ha ha, beat you, you snooze, you lose. Thanks, Jonah thought. He didn't care where he took a shower right now. In the shower, he stood under the spray for a long time after he had soaped up and rinsed off. The hot water felt good, although Mom and Dad were always nagging him about not wasting water and energy. You kids should be concerned about the future, Mom would say, because you're going to have to live here. Oh no, Jonah moaned. Was that what this was about? So many of the time travel books and movies that he'd seen, people came back from the future to warn them about global warming and stuff like that. What if he and Jonah and the other kids were supposed to deliver some message about how people need to make big changes now to save the world in the future? Lots of people are already talking about global warming, he said aloud, although he had no idea who he was talking to. Nobody's going to listen to me. Also, if this was an environmental thing, what were the two sides fighting over? Did the janitor just want him to stay here and deliver his message? Did the other guy want the world to end? Jonah wasn't enjoying the shower anymore. He shut off the water, pulled a towel from the rack, and distantly he heard the phone ring. Then it stopped ringing. Dad must have gotten up from watching the Ohio State game to answer it. Jonah knew Catherine would still be in the shower because she always took forever. Then she had to spend another eternity drying her hair. She'd be doing well to make it back to Chip's house before midnight. Jonah, it was Dad shouting up the stairs. Chip is on the phone. He says it's urgent. Can you get the phone up there? Sure, Jonah said. He wrapped his towel around his waist and went for the phone. Got it, Dad, Jonah yelled, and he heard the click that meant Dad had hung up downstairs. Hello? They're gone, Chip said, voice cracking. What's gone? The lists on my computer. The survivors list, the witnesses list, the files that Catherine and I were keeping checklists on about who said what. Everything. It's all disappeared. The rest of the computer's fine, but everything's gone. How can that be? And we're going to stop there.